You know, if there's one thing I always find intriguing, it's the idea of alternate history, whether that's the dystopian 1980s of Watchmen or the retro 2010s in Back to the Future. It's always interesting to consider what something could be had circumstances been different. So when I found out they were making a movie speculating what would have happened if the Beatles were never around, my reaction was one of excitement. But I guess my presumptions didn't exactly coincide with the movie itself, aptly titled Yesterday. Allow me to explain myself. So it kicks off with the main character Jack busking to no audience in various places. It's quickly established that he's been doing this for years, thus to no avail. He's currently at a bog standard job with a boss who clearly hates him. Such is life, I suppose. However, his manager and longtime friend Ellie tells him he's got a slot at a festival. Of course he's ecstatic about this news, so it shows him centre stage in the tent to reveal there's basically no one listening. Much like his busking days, and this was delivered really well. It's hyped up to make you think he's at the pyramid stage at Glastonbury, only to reveal that it's basically dead, and I have to give it credit for that. After this we're introduced to Rocky, and in honesty he's probably my favourite character. Most of the jokes that land come courtesy of him. Anyway, after finishing up, Jack decides to end his ambition with music as he thinks it's a lost cause, much to Ellie's distaste. So after this, he is biking home when a sudden blackout occurred with the orchestral build-up from A Day in the Life playing. Delivered to perfect timing, he is then hit by a bus during the blackout. He then wakes up in hospital and is told what happened. He is discharged and greeted by his friends who have various get-well-soon gifts, including a brand new guitar. Everyone insists on hearing a song, so he begins to play Yesterday and is surprised that nobody recognises it. And I like that he's legitimately annoyed by it being compared to Coldplay, like, understandable. Baffled and frustrated, he gets home to research the Beatles and they have vanished from existence, and he seems to be the only one who remembers them. After this dawning realisation, he quickly gets to work on reciting as many songs as he can with the intent of giving his music career another go, using the back catalogue of the Beatles that were never recorded. After various shows with no interest, a local studio owner approaches him and lets him use the studio free of charge. With plenty of material recorded and ready to go, they quickly get to work promoting him, and the viral sensation that is Jack catches the attention of Ed Sheeran of all people. Really? I'm just going to say this now. He comes across as annoying and a bit of an ego wanker in this movie. I've no idea if he was basically playing himself or if the screenplay required him to be annoying, but either way it had to be said. With that out the way, back to the plot. So Jack now has the big break he wanted. Ed hires him as the support act for the European leg of his tour, and his manager approaches Jack, basically offering him a record deal there and then. But whilst there, he is spotted by suspicious-looking character number one. Remember him, he may be important later. After arriving in Los Angeles, they offer him fame and fortune. They also explain that they're basically going to exploit him for all he is worth. And I admit, I really appreciate how they made the label executives basically the antagonists of the movie. I really like how they basically tell him he's unattractive and that he needs a lot of cleaning. It made me laugh how they accurately portrayed the scouting process. They just want him to look the part and be as superficial as possible, because superficiality makes money. Anyway, he accepts the offer and quickly gets to work writing and recording. He wants to go to Liverpool for inspiration, and no one seems to understand why. Whilst there, he is spotted by another suspicious onlooker. It's clear she knows something's up. With Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane now under his belt, he finds that Ellie has visited him in Liverpool to see him. So they share some stories and they end up back at her hotel room. Just as you think they're about to get it on, she leaves, as she states she doesn't want to be a one-night stand. It then has a flashback to Jack performing Wonderwall of all things at a school talent show, and this raises the question, did this even happen now? It was established earlier Oasis never happened also, so is this a fake memory? It just doesn't seem to make sense when you think about it. And there's never really an explanation as to why the Beatles vanished either. I can't shake the feeling it's just laziness on the writer's side, but give me something to work with. A snippet from a news report or interview with a scientist would have sufficed, because it seems only reasonable to ask why all this is happening. But I digress. The next day, Jack realises that he's in love with Ellie, and he thinks passing the Beatles' work off as his own was a terrible mistake. But without the time he needs, he ends up back in Los Angeles to finish the songs in the album. They later tell him he needs a location for the launch show and decides on an old hotel he went to once. Backstage, he is confronted by the two suspicious-looking strangers from earlier, as they simply want to thank him for the effort to bringing the songs back into the world, as they can still remember the Beatles as well. And it begs the question, how many people also remember them? Surely it's not just 3 people out of everyone on Earth. Then follows Jack phoning Ed for a favour, and it turns out he wanted to do one more show, and this is at Wembley Stadium. After a loud and climactic performance, he reveals the truth about his songwriting and success, explaining he's a fraud and the Beatles are the real heroes. So he gives away every song he's recorded for free on Napster or something. And I'm no tech expert, but surely uploading hours worth of music would take hours. This happens in like 10 seconds. I mean, it takes me like an hour to upload a 5-minute YouTube video, but okay. Honestly, don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. It just felt kind of daft in honesty. Anyway, after making a run from the stadium before he gets bombarded with fans, he gets with Ellie and they live happily ever after, I guess. Love story! A passing joke reveals Harry Potter doesn't exist anymore, so there's that. We then flash forward a few years and Jack is now a school teacher and he and Ellie now have children together, so it basically turns into a rom-com. So that's it, that's the plot. I admit it is a bit clunky, but I won't deny that it's actually a fun movie. It's not trying to be anything else and it certainly succeeded in that. And there are definitely things that worked in its favour. It sounds like they're actually performing live instead of using overdubs, which I appreciate, and it just makes it seem more real and not just fabricated in post-production. And it did make me chuckle how Jack can never remember the words to Eleanor Rigby in the correct order. This is something I often do myself. It's just one of those things, I guess. And I thought it was clever of them to make the credits last long enough to hear Hey Jude in its entirety, as it's really one of those songs that the shortened version just simply isn't the same. One more thing that really stood out was the John Lennon cameo. I thought it was a touching tribute, as I often wonder what it would be like if he was still alive. And I think it's quite a broad scope, as it's established plenty of things have also vanished from existence. And it just leaves the audience to speculate the grand scale of changes, and if it's possible that some people remember other things everyone else has forgotten about. As always, I have to be a nitpicky bastard about things. Firstly, like out of every song for a talent show, it had to be Wonderwall. I get that it's a well-known song, but it just feels like a bit of a cliche at this point. I also think the Let It Be joke at the beginning where he keeps getting interrupted probably went on a bit too long for it to have remained funny the whole time. And one more thing that bugged me was deciding to have Ed Sheeran playing during the montage at the end. Like, surely it would have made more sense to have, you know, a Beatles song, something like Something, or If I Fell would have been more appropriate. So in conclusion, I guess I'm a bit disappointed by this movie. The idea of a world where the Beatles never happened was such an intriguing idea for a film, and it kind of feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. I guess I was expecting a serious drama and instead it was a hybrid rom-com / musical, and I don't understand why they thought Danny Boyle was the right man to direct, as he usually does thrillers and actual dramatic movies, but I genuinely feel like it could have been so much better if it was written as a dramatised world, where culture is completely different as a result. It probably would have suited its premise much better. Well, I think that about covers it. Signing off.